So what about the grid for the world? What about grid for California? What about grid for Arizona? What about grid and the battery storage that goes on there? Is it really going to work out to where we're going to actually be able to store all the electricity we need for cities in the whole United States using laptop batteries? You know, big batteries like that, round batteries, or even flat batteries like you would find in your phone and things like that. Is that really potential? Because if you put these things that are lithium close to each other, they heat up. And you have hundreds of thousands of them in these large processes that Tesla and other people are doing for countries and for states and for local communities. But is that the right way? Is those batteries the right ones? Should those be used for vehicles and transport? And the big storage systems, really big storage systems, maybe these should be a totally different battery. So in MIT, they came up with liquid metal batteries. And liquid metal batteries last infinitely. You get these other batteries, they'll give you three years, and then you have to switch them out. 3 years, because they have 6,000 cycles, and those cycles on a day-to-day basis, they're being cycled maybe 10 to 20 times, because a whole city is draining these batteries, and the solar is pumping electricity into those batteries. So they're cycling 24/7. So they only have a limit of 6,000 cycles. A really good system has 6,000 cycles. Well, if you have a small system and you're recycling not that much and you fill it up only about 2/3, then your batteries will last about 6,000 to 8,000 cycles. And that lasts about 10 years. 10 years for an average person. But not a city. It's 2 years, because they're pumping it, So that's not viable. And then the costs of those batteries are incredibly expensive when you first start out and you put them in. So here's what we got. We have liquid metal batteries, and this is what's going to be.
But when we start thinking about grid level storage, if you want to pair batteries with solar or wind, which are intermittent, you need something a little more robust than the battery that was designed for your mobile phone. And so that's what I turned my attention to. And that's what gave birth to the liquid metal battery.
So when we're talking about liquid metal, I'm familiar with mercury. It's it's liquid at room temperature, but your batteries aren't made out of mercury. So how are they liquid?
So they have to run at elevated temperature. So an example is the first battery that when I say we, I mean I with my students and postdocs at MIT. The first battery we worked on was magnesium opposite antimony, and these metals melt around 630, 650 degrees Celsius. So we had to go up to about 700 degrees Celsius. And you might say, well, gee, that's very high temperature, but imagine a battery, say the size of a shipping container. It would be insulated so that it would be cool to the touch on the outside, but inside it would be operating at this elevated temperature.
And so how do these batteries work? Like, why elevate the temperature of metal and do all this work when we have, lithium-ion batteries that work at room temperature?
There's a push and a pull here. So the pull is that these batteries operating at elevated temperature can cycle with very, very high charging and discharging rates. And they can also cycle deep discharge many times, thousands of cycles, and without capacity fade. In other words, after we have data from Ambry, after 5,000 cycles, the batteries are still retaining 99+% of their original charge. So these are powerful advantages, because if you put batteries on the grid, you're not going to change them every 2-3 years the way you do with your phone or your laptop computer. You want to put them there for 20 years. And that means you have to have batteries that don't lose their capacity. These are some of the advantages that you get from the liquid metal battery. And also the price point is very, very low. But the other thing is the disadvantages of lithium-ion. Lithium-ion works beautifully in the small format. But if you start putting hundreds of thousands of lithium-ion batteries in close proximity, you're going to have to be very aggressive about thermal management, because they're going to heat up. And if they heat up, they could go supercritical and burst into flame and so on. There's an optimum application for these various battery chemistries. And I think that when you go to grid level storage, lithium-ion might not be the best fit. I mean, we see some evidence of lithium-ion being deployed, but I think in terms of round-trip efficiency and safety and long service lifetime, I think liquid metal battery is a better fit.
That's fact. Yep. So these things are functioning there. We already have these batteries, and they're in very large operation, and they've been functioning for like 5-10 years. So there's not a problem with them. The difficulty is transition, because everybody is being marketed, batteries, buy these batteries. Tesla believes that he could do what he's doing. Other companies believe that they can do what China could do what he's doing. All that, it all depends on what is real. What is the focus here? And this particular project was to bring about not looking at it as like if you were at MIT or another university and you're developing something, your focus is not the money, what it will cost to put this into production. Your focus is to get it into a reality and show that it works. So you're going to use all the money you can get. And you're going to use materials that make it easy. You're going to use that very expensive materials. You're going to do all these things that make it possible for it to function and function quickly. But at MIT, what he decided that he would do it at focus of what would it cost to produce it. And we have to stay with that focus from the very beginning. So we use certain metals that are extremely low cost, highly environmentally easy to come by, and just they melt very quickly, easy, stable, the whole bit. Salt is a midline point. That's the electrolysis, the electrical process in between. Everything stays as a layer. They're separated by their own nature. So you just put the salt in, it stays in the center. You put the other metal in, it stays at the top. Another metal stays at the bottom. Everything stays exactly as it should. There's no, that does not mix. So that by nature, it creates a battery. You can't get a cheaper process. The making of thousands of batteries to do the same thing one battery would do is crazy. And yet this battery costs so little money to put it into actual function, and it could do what thousands of batteries could do. So that's where we're stepping. This is a big, big, big thing. This makes it possible for us to electrify the world, to electrify countries, electrify cities, put in these monorails and put in these tubular scenarios to where we have solar along the side and these battery systems, and it's consistent. These things don't go out. They don't blow up. They don't have to be changed out every 2 years. If we did that, we'd be looking constantly. Everybody looks at this economical, the negative side of it, rather than finding the truth and doing it in the way it meant to be, and have it come out first that way, just like this MIT guy. So now we have a very inexpensive way to do it. And instead of worrying about how it's going to be cooled and everything, it's actually a melting process. And that electrical energy moves faster and easier and smoother in that process. So it's not going to go in a car, but it's something that might end up in your home. Imagine that battery in your home for a whole life, your whole life. One small system of batteries that's then set up in a package where you have your inverter and everything, just like I just showed you, except that it's 50 times more powerful, 20 times easier to charge, and it could take cycles that would last longer than your lifetime. Yeah. So you don't rebuy it, you don't upgrade it or anything like that. Yeah. It's so much more than what you need. Yeah. Those are going to be the batteries that we're going to get in the future. Right now we have to modularly buy them, and it's so expensive, and all this goes on. But when we reach this stage, we'll be at a point to where we can economically make it viable for everybody to live in an electric society and not have it be a polluting society. I invoke the light of the Christ within.